Hello, I'm Gideon Marcus, and this is The Journey Show. Hello and welcome everybody to the July 11th, 1965 edition of The Journey Show. I'm your host, Gideon Marcus, and today we have the most esteemed panel of guests I have yet assembled. And you know that's a big deal because we have lots of amazing guests on The Journey Show. And what's this? Oh my God, I'm eating black licorice again. How did this get on my desk? So anyway, on my right or to your left or however the studio people have set this up, we have Gwyn Conaway of the Design Guild. We have Carla Woodson, costumer extraordinaire. And we have Gabriela Hernandez, the CEO and founder of Bésame Cosmetics. And in fact, this show is brought to you in collaboration with Bésame Cosmetics, the Design Guild, and Carla Woodson Incorporated. So we're going to get right to costuming, but first, this news. On July 3rd, Soviet General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev announced that the USSR had developed an orbital nuclear bombardment system able to shower bombs from space at any moment. On July 4th, America celebrated its 189th birthday. That day also marked protests in Philadelphia by members of the homosexual community who demanded equal rights under the law as American citizens. After oil was found in the neutral zone between Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, it was inevitable that the two nations would finalize the boundaries between their two countries. On July 7th, the entirety of the zone was officially partitioned. The diamond-shaped zone between Saudi Arabia and Iraq remains. In Vietnam news, on July 8th, former vice presidential candidate Henry Cabot Lodge has replaced General Maxwell Taylor as U.S. ambassador to South Vietnam. Taylor had himself replaced Lodge just a year prior. On July 9th, American Marines recaptured the naval installation at Chu Lai, driving several hundred Viet Cong back into the hiding. No attempt was made to capture or pursue the enemy for fear reprisals would be taken out on peaceful villages in the street. This morning, a reinforced battalion of the Army's 1st Infantry Division arrived in Vietnam, the first complete unit of Army troops to be deployed there. By year's end, we could be seeing more than 100,000 American soldiers stationed in Southeast Asia. In Chicago yesterday, 27 of 200 civil rights protesters were arrested in Chicago. The rally was spurred by Reverend A.D. King, brother of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And in Bogalusa, Louisiana, marches organized by the Committee on Racial Equality and the vigilante group Deacons for Defense and Justice have spawned countermarches by white supremacists. This story is ongoing. Finally, in space news, Mariner 4 is now just 3 days away from its encounter with Mars. As it flies by the red planet, it will take and return 21 photos, establishing once and for all the existence of the myriad mysterious canals. We'll have a full report on this mission during our next broadcast on July 25th. And there's the news for this week. Stand by. We appear to be suffering some technical difficulties. So we seem to be fine everywhere else except the Journey Station. So we're going to go to introduce our amazing panel. So let's start off with Gwyn Conaway. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm a costume designer here in Hollywood, and I'm also a fashion historian. I focus mostly on the Cold War period in the 20th century, and then our current times as it is. And then I also look back into the past, particularly in Europe, from about 1740 to the end of World War II, and then also in Southeast Asia, primarily Japan and Korea. that's what I do. I also, I work in film, primarily here in Hollywood, as it is suggested by the name Hollywood. I am a member of Local 892, which is the Costume Designers Guild, as a costume designer and costume illustrator. So I work not only in film, primarily in period film and in drama, but I also work under other designers as an illustrator for communicating what they want as designers on their own projects as well. So I do quite a variety of work, but primarily it has to do with illustration and design.
All right, and now let's hear from Carla Woodson. Tell us all about you.
Hi, I'm Carla Woodson. I am a freelance fashion designer and
All right, let's
costume historian for myself.
This one.
I
just from here.
Do
put it on the speakers.
I love comic books. I enjoy reading. I get all of my inspiration from the past. So anywhere from the 1770s to now.
Fantastic. And Gabriela, tell us about you.
I'm Gabriela Hernandez, and I'm the founder of Bésame Cosmetics, and I'm also a makeup historian, and I work in Hollywood as well with period film, and also we manufacture different colors of cosmetics from different eras. So we design and manufacture all our products here in California, and we have worked in quite a bit of different types of period movies and television to make props for film, but also to provide them with the correct colors and textures to use so that they're accurate to the period they're portraying in the movies. And we also make collections with different folks. And our latest one is with Lucille Ball and in her family. So I'm very happy to have that one out. Yeah, everything to do with history and makeup.
That's amazing. And we will definitely be talking about the Lucille Ball line momentarily. I'm back up in our auxiliary studio. Everything is fine. I know you were worried about me. It was not the licorice, I promise. So we have a special treat for you. Not only do we have this amazing panel of guests, but we also have our very own model, the young traveler, who's going to be showing off her brand new outfits. So while we're here, Ms. Lorelei, will you show off the first outfit?
Darling.
So I'd love to go around the panel one at a time and get your thoughts on this outfit. And the designer is somebody famous, I'm pretty sure. Where's your label?
I don't know that it has one.
I was pretty sure it had a label. It's by a designer who's probably someone important and likes the color turquoise. So let's start with Gwyn. Tell us about this outfit.
Well, it's pretty indicative of the time of the year, especially the bright color is very seasonal for this particular year. We see a lot of, I love, Lorelei, I love how you're working that outfit. It's great. So we see that there are a lack of detail in terms of notions. So we have 3 large buttons, but no other details like embroidery or excess buttons or zippers or anything like that. That's really indicative of this period. We also see that the gingham that really nice tight gingham is really popular this year. And the silhouette looks like that sort of space age inspired uniform of American women's wear and European women's wear, but with a youthful spin. You know, the collar is soft. The collar points are soft. They're not pointed, for example. And the shape is just boxy enough to make it look adolescent rather than mature. So very indicative of this summer. I think you might be muted.
I think I might be muted too.
No, now I can hear you. But did you say something?
I'm sure I did. I do that a lot. So, Carla, your thoughts on this lovely spring summer outfit?
I personally love the color as well. It's very bright. It sets her hair off beautifully. And it's just darling. I really like it. Nothing really amazing for me. Just it's beautiful and it suits her quite well.
Your specialty, as I understand, is costumes of the 19th century and also up through the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
18th century, actually.
Say again?
18th century, actually.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Well,
Yes.
How does this differ from clothes people wore in the past?
Well, it's a bit similar to the 20s in terms of the box shape. The sort of, I believe it's called the garçon shape, so more of a boyish look to it. It's less detail oriented as would something from the 20s would be. And
Is that an issue of mass production? Are we just dashing off clothes more quickly these days for more people?
a bit, yes, I think.
And Gabriela, tell us your thoughts on this outfit.
I think it's very, very cute. I mean, this type of silhouette is very much in vogue in the 60s, and it kind of does resemble uniforms. And you see this kind of similar silhouette in airline hostess uniforms of the same period, except they had a little hat that went along with it, and little scarves and that. But very, very much a gamine type shape, kind of a twiggy look in the hair, in makeup. So it's very much of a kind of a boy oriented type of thing. So not as feminine, not as many curves, very linear shapes. And strong pastel colors, which are in vogue in not only clothing, but also shadows and very pale lips. But yeah, very, very lovely outfit, but it does kind of resemble a uniform, which was the intention, very simplistic clothing that kind of was more function oriented and comfort oriented as well.
Well, that's wonderful. Lorelei, you've got a lot more clothes to try on, and we've got some more things to talk about. So thank you very much.
All right.
I had a couple of questions. So, Carla, you are wearing an amazing outfit, and I understand this outfit is inspired by an actual person who is currently working for NASA as we speak. I wonder if you might tell us what inspired you to wear your particular outfit today.
Well, I was inspired by Katherine Johnson, who is one of the human computers for NASA at the moment. She was born in 1918 in West Virginia. She graduated high school at the tender age of 14 and graduated college at the age of 18 with degrees in mathematics and French. And she's just amazing. It's great to see someone that looks like me doing something amazing.
And how do you find, obviously what you're wearing right now is of the style of just a couple of years ago. So I imagine that just came right out of your current closet. But for older costumes back to the 18th century and maybe earlier in the 20th century, clothes that people might get their hands on, how do people source these kinds of clothes, or do they just have to make them?
Some people source them, some people make them. I tend to make a lot of mine. But when I do find it, it's usually relatives. They're giving me hand-me-downs, uh, to which some people are like, "Oh, that poor dear." Um, it's
I would
going to
kill to
shops,
have 100-year-old hand-me-downs that fit.
right? But it's usually relatives or even theater places tend to have um, garments of that sort.
That's true. There was a costume shop that went out of business a couple of years ago, and I got so many nice Renaissance theater clothes. And they just started a Renaissance pleasure fair in Southern California. I believe the first year was 2 years ago. Lorelei and I went. And that's a pretty exciting phenomenon. So it's great to have these wonderful costumes to wear to them. Gwyn, obviously you do this professionally. You find and probably make these kinds of clothes. Tell us all about how you do that.
So the process of a costume designer is quite varied, but one of the things that is always a part of our process is that we don't only create and design what we're doing, we also manage the entire department, which is unlike production designers in most cases. And that's true of makeup artists and hair as well, that we manage our own departments as well as creating. So we have to know how to not only create the design and to research, but we also have to know how to talk to our technicians, our tailors, and our drapers that do make the designs for us. We have to know how to find sources for vintage fabrics, for example, or who can make those fabrics for us. An example would be that there are only really 2 cobblers on the West Coast, one in Canada and one down here, that know how to make certain shoes from the first half of the 20th century. And you have to know how to find those sources in order to get things that are actually accurate, if accuracy is what you're going for. So our process usually is a huge hodgepodge of building things from scratch for certain actors or certain scenes that we need something really specific for. But we also have to go sourcing at vintage shops, thrift shops, costume shops, warehouses. It's really, we rent, we purchase, we build. It's all of those things together. And then once we've built them, a really important part of the process is actually to make them feel like they're lived in. Because of course, not everybody walks out of their house looking like they've just purchased something from Macy's or wherever. You have to make it look like they've lived in that thing for a while, even though it may have just been finished yesterday. And so another part of the process for us is what we call breakdown. So once our costumes are amassed and we have all the things that we need to tell the story, the garments that we need to tell the story, then we have to make sure that they fit in the context of that person's life. So we have to dye things with tea. We have to sand down fabrics. We have to fade fabrics with different kinds of bleach and ammonia. We have to paint fabrics and print them and do all sorts of things like that. So it's a huge process with a lot of very different steps incorporated. And that doesn't even go into the having to do the research beforehand and get the approval from your producers and your directors in order to really start the process of building and creating. You have to first prove that your idea is the best idea for the production moving forward. And that honestly is probably the most stressful part of the process, is right up at front. And then it's trying to catch up on your timeline after that. It's a huge process.
That is absolutely fascinating. Someday I wish I could just walk in your shoes and just see what you do any given week.
It's different every day.
I imagine. Well, and kind of like the journey where we live every day, day by day, and every day is different. When we were doing this kind of thing 5 years ago, my clothes were different. My tie was fatter, and I was a little fatter. So for our next outfit, and Gabriela, I want to get to you and talk all about your latest line, but we have another outfit from the lovely Lorelei. And this, as you can tell, it's summer vacation, but she is dressed for school. And I would love to get your thoughts on this, starting with Gwyn.
So this is a very quintessential look for young women. The blouse shows a sort of legacy, honestly, through the past 70 years or so. So starting in the mid-bustle period, 1870s, 1880s, maybe, where we start to see shirtwaists as a part of young women's wear for going to college. When we see collegiate women, it's still, even to this day, it's still very traditional for us to see them wearing white button-up shirts with a single piece skirt, some sort of either it's pleated, like what we see, that beautiful plaid there that's got those box pleats, or it could be a pencil skirt even, or obviously an A-line skirt from previous periods. And then, of course, the way that this particular skirt is pleated, if you notice, it's not like what you would see maybe later in history or even earlier. What we see here is, instead of the traditional knife pleat, which has all of the pleats moving in the same direction like this around the waist, instead what we see is individual box pleats, so that the waist and the hip are smooth against the body, and then the bottom of the skirt around the thighs and the knees is what kicks out. This is part of what gives it this really youthful look, because it makes our legs look a little shorter instead of so long and vixen-like. It gives us a little bit more of that girlish look.
Fantastic. Carla, does this look like anything you had to wear when you were going to school? Uh-oh. There she's back. Carla, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can, sorry.
No, that's okay. You know what? Telstar does its best, but as you can see, sometimes even the engineer boys at NASA have trouble. So, and yeah, of course, and ladies like Katherine Johnson. How long has this style been around? Is this something that could have existed several decades ago, or is this a new style?
Well, it depends on who was wearing it a bit. Most separates such as that were more popular, say, starting in the early 20th century with the shirtwaist and the separate skirt, but more of a singular garment was popularized because it was easier to put together. I'd say about the 40s is when separates started to become more in vogue, if I remember correctly. Gwen, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
So did you have to wear something like this when you went to school?
Yes. Did not like it. Immediately ran home and changed into something different.
Fascinating. All right, and Gabriela, tell us your thoughts on this outfit.
It does look a lot like a school uniform. I did have to wear something like that when I went to school as well. Different colors, but similar styling, same style of skirt and shirt, and with a sweater on top. I think this style with the saddle shoes too was really popular in the 1950s as a girl's outfit, I guess. And then it just, I think, became more of a uniform look for schoolgirls, and was adopted by Catholic schools quite a bit for uniforms. So all of the girls would wear similar outfits to this.
Well, thank you very much, Lorelei, for showing off this wonderful outfit. We will have more. And now, Gabriela, I wanted to ask you, so you very specifically, you set out and built a business whose job is to bring to life vintage, and of course current too, because you have a new line for 1965, I understand. But
Yes.
But vintage cosmetics, lipsticks. I know Janice back there is a huge fan. So tell us about how you started this, and how you figure out what was appropriate, where you get the materials for it, and so on, without giving any trade secrets, of course. We don't want competitors to steal your business.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of work. I don't know if they would want to, but there's a lot of easier ways, I think, to go about it than how I go about it. But basically, I'm a designer by trade, so I enjoyed the design part of it all. And I started because other companies were asking me to actually come up with ideas and concepts for their lines, and I wanted to do something with that was kind of more romantic, and that I remembered my grandmother had items like this that I thought were really pretty and were meant to be kept instead of, like kind of this kind of plastics that are now more throwaway. So kind of going back to things that were kind of more keepsake. So I started designing those types of products, and of course, since they look like props for different types of period films, I started to work with a lot of the prop people from films, and also the makeup departments from all the films. So that's kind of it. Kind of that developed kind of by itself because they knew I had things, and the way I go about reproducing things is I have to have originals. So I'm always shopping and hunting for originals from different periods. So I go all over the place, just like for the costumes. In Gwyn, I go to antique places, auctions, estate auctions. I mean, anywhere. I'm always looking for things. And when I find a particular item from a year that I want that I don't have, then I can purchase it. If it has product on it, I can analyze that product and then reproduce it as closely as I can to the original shade, and sometimes the texture, depending on what I'm looking for. So it's a lot of trial and error to get those things to look right, because obviously the pigments and things that people used in the past, we no longer can use because of safety concerns. So there's a lot of trial and error to actually get those colors to be more accurate and the textures to be more accurate. But I enjoy it, though. It's kind of part of hunting down all these things and actually learning more about the manufacturing from the period that was made, and why those colors were popular, which is really fascinating to understand why a certain color becomes popular and how long it stays popular, and then another color comes along. And it has to do with all kinds of issues, like social things that are going on, why people are wearing a certain shade, why they're going towards a certain texture. Obviously now, in the 60s, a more natural look is coming in because there is a kind of an anti-establishment kind of feeling going on because of the war. So all of this leads to people wanting to be kind of more free, and kind of like what they did at Woodstock, where they just kind of like are flower children and are kind of going to natural looks, natural makeup. So you have a lot
Woodstock. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. That's
Yeah.
Snoopy's friend, right?
Some festivals where young people congregate and they talk about politics, and they pretty much are against everything that the government is doing. So they just want to be free, and the makeup kind of went along with that, and the looks went along with that. So a lot of people started wearing flowers in their hair, and wearing glossier lips, and something that looks youthful and free. So that kind of has to do a lot with the makeup in the times. So the times kind of reflect what people wear.
So that's an excellent segue. So there's a lot of great questions, and of course there's more outfits, but a question I really wanted to ask, you may notice, viewers at home, that we have very carefully selected a wide palette of skin tones in the people who are presenting today, and they range from me, who is, I don't know if you can tell the difference between my face and this shirt, all the way to Carla, who is at the lovely darker end of the spectrum. And so I'd like to start with Carla and then work my way around. What styles are different depending on your ethnicity? What are you looking for? What complements the best? What things might be harder to find if you have a less common complexion? So Carla, take it away.
Just in terms of fashion, Black people would wear the same things that white people would wear, except sometimes we'd add a little bit more pizzazz to it. style it a little different with the hat, like tilt a hat a certain way, or accentuate the eyelashes a lot more, or darken the brows a bit more, something like that. There is more of a turn to wearing our hair natural, the way that it was, the way that it comes out of our head, which is a nice curly start. But not a lot of us are, not a lot of us are doing it. Some of us conform more to the Eurocentric style. But back to clothing. Yeah, just wear our Sunday best on Sundays and when we're going on dates. Things we have difficulty in finding. Pardon?
Oh, I was going to ask, what about lipstick shades, blush shades? Was there complete lines for Black people, or was that harder to find?
It was a bit harder to find. There are some Black-owned companies that do makeup for us, but the shades tend to look kind of ashen. And the lipsticks were a nice bold red, a natural lip, a dusty rose even, a blush, a light pink, or even even just use like your lipstick as a rouge.
Fascinating. Now, Gabriela, you, like my great aunt Rachel, are Hispanic, and so your skin tone is unique as well. What complements a Latin complexion?
Well, Latin people obviously come in every color as well, but a lot of us have more of a, olive skin tone. So there's a lot more yellow in our skin. And some of us are a little bit deeper tan skin. So a lot of, in this period of time, a lot of us started to wear bolder shadow shades in the purples, in the blues, very, very common to wear bolder shades. The lips, though, kind of became a little bit more nudie at this time, more nude shades like peaches and pinks instead of the reds that were popular in the 50s. We started to transition into more nude lips, but stronger eyes. So a lot more liner on the eyes, like black liners, and more colorful shadows that really, put the attention to the eye area. And the blush is instead of more pinky, they're either more peach or more brown, and the color is kind of put underneath the cheekbones here, so to accentuate the angles of the face a bit more, because that's kind of what the style right now is, to kind of accentuate the more angular parts of the face. So it's a little bit lower than it used to be, the blush, but definitely the eye is taking quite a bit more emphasis now. Also with the use of lashes, like false lashes have become a huge thing. So everybody's wearing false lashes, not only on the top, but only on the bottom as well sometimes, and very extravagant lashes. And now they come in all colors. So you could wear lashes that are all kinds of shades, like purple lashes, blue lashes. So the lashes are definitely a thing. And even when you don't wear the lashes, some girls are drawing in lashes into the bottom of the eye. So the eye is really going, the face is becoming more of a palette that people actually paint on and do different designs, like little flowers or little liners that kind of go out and meet. And so a lot more playful as far as what the makeup is doing, instead of very severe and structured looks like we had in the 40s and the 50s, where there was kind of one style that was generally acceptable and people tried to do that style for the most part. Now people are being way more free with their makeup, and they're doing all kinds of things.
So speaking of which, Gwyn, one thing I noted when Lorelai, and she of course like me is a melanin challenged individual, she was looking in Vogue and various other magazines to get ideas for her makeup, and she found that blue seemed to be the eye shade of choice. Is that a seasonal thing, or has that been coming around for a while?
So I think that Gabriela could probably speak a little bit better about this than I could, but it is very seasonal, as far as I know. Part of it has been in the past couple of years, we've had this huge interest in India and the idea of exploration and colonialism in a way. You know, we've just had this huge economic boom because of how much money Europe owes us after World War II, and that has propelled us into this age of feeling, particularly in America, feeling quite superior on the world stage. So it's propelled us into an era of exploration and adventure. And I think that a lot of inspiration has come from places like India, where we see much more color traditionally a part of the palette of the face. So I think that has something to do with it. I think also, I was going to mention, exactly like Gabriela did, the emphasis on eyelashes, and not just that they are emphasized, but that people design how their eyelashes clump together, right, to create almost like abstract, natural eyelash shapes, if that makes sense. So we're seeing abstraction all over the place that really shows us like this tension going along with the adventure, and that it's kind of part of the fun, that there's some sort of a danger lurking in the back of our minds. That's usually what abstraction means in aesthetic. So that's what I can say about makeup. Otherwise, I don't know quite nearly as much as Gabriela would.
Well, and I just have to say, Gwyn, I think we've now established what your August article has to be about. You've covered African influence on American fashion. I would love to see what Indian influence on American fashion is, if you have enough to make an article out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's look at Lorelei's next outfit. Here she comes, Miss the Journey Show. So, Gwyn, we'll start with you again. Tell us about this outfit.
Yeah, can you show me the skirt portion? Is it a skirt? Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is that dress, right? It's a beautiful dress. So this is really, this is definitely something that an adult woman would wear. Whereas the other two things we've seen a lot of youth and playfulness in them. This is definitely for cut for elegance. When we look at this, that bateau neckline where we have it wider, kind of skimming along the top of the collarbones, this period wasn't very interested in showing off our mature shape. We didn't want to emphasize our bust, waist, and hip ratio quite as much as we wanted to emphasize the graceful lines of our forearms and our wrists, and the line of our thigh moving into our calves and our ankles, and the line of our collarbones and the backs of our necks. And these kinds of elegance, perfect, these kinds of elegance really speak to a youthful revolution that is on the horizon and is coming up very quickly. This move away from that mature figure into these other erogenous zones around the garment.
Carla, tell us what you think.
Firstly, I definitely think that blue is your color. Yes, it's not quite a 3/4 sleeve, but the sleeve would be perfect, like Gwyn said, for showing off the length of the arm and showing off bracelets and the like, as well as, say, like a small choker necklace instead of a long, elegant, like layette style. It's a bit more form-fitting, and it's darling. I like it.
Gabriela, your thoughts?
This is a perfect office outfit. So somebody who works as a secretary or in a corporate environment, this would have been the outfit of choice, I think, for any professional woman or woman working in an office environment. It's long enough where it's not showing a lot, so it's demure enough and serious and very flattering. So I think this is a perfect outfit for that. You could pair it well with a nice watch and a small bracelet and some earrings. And then it could easily double as a going out type of dress if you added a scarf or something on your head, like a headband or a scarf around the head. You could make it a little bit more playful and use it as a date dress as well. So very versatile dress. And I think this style is very popular, also available in a lot of primary colors, and you would have matched the color of the dress to the color of your shadow. So with this dress, you would have worn the blue shadow. If it was green, which green was another popular shade of dresses, you would have matched the shade of the dress to your shadow as well.
And of course, I can tell you that she will wear this on college interviews and perhaps on her summer jobs, but I don't expect she'll be wearing this on dates anytime soon.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Lorelei. We're going to go to questions. So, Janice, we have the unique joy of actually seeing you as you tell us what's happening. So, what is the first question?
We have two very similar questions. I have just broadcast the first one. Jessica Rydell says, how has Hollywood design influenced fashion in 1965? And later, Jimmy Croft asked, how did popular culture, movie stars, etc., influence fashion, hairstyles, and makeup?
So now we're talking about the tail wagging the dog. Rather than stars wearing the latest fashion, how do stars make the latest fashion? I think we have to go to Gwyn first for this one.
So this has actually been happening for centuries. The way that fashion has been disseminated through the middle and then the working classes is that we see catalogs or we see sketches. We are able to read or hear descriptions of what people are wearing that we can't actually see in person. What Hollywood has done to transform that over time is that we are then able to see those fashions and those sort of social elite actually wearing their garments, wearing their costumes, their custom mades in a way that has not been available, was not available at all before about 1905 or so. And so it really revolutionized what we had already been doing, which was sort of copying the fashions of people ahead of the curve, which would be royalty. It would be social influencers, people like their dressmakers or their inner circle, things like that, really, really strong charismatic characters. So in 1965 specifically, usually we see fashion lagging behind by a couple of years. So films like Some Like It Hot, which recently came out, films like The Birds, which recently came out within a couple of years. These kinds of films are now a big part of the fashion landscape of America and the world, really, at a larger scale than just on.
Is Rod Taylor Why My Tie Is So Thin?
Could be.
And Carla, your thoughts on this? What movie stars have started what fashions recently?
Well, I tend not to follow a lot of current movies.
That's true. You're more of a 20s, 30s, and 40s person. What is a famous fashion that started early in the 20th century that you ended up incorporating in some of the great outfits that you wear?
Probably the sailor look, but that came from sailors in the Navy. So not so much the social elite, more of just people doing their job.
And Gabriela, this is actually a great segue to talk about one of the most influential people in the industry and a powerhouse, especially given the age of chauvinism that we live in right now, Lucille Ball. Tell us about your work with her and her style.
Well, she's such an amazing woman because, you know, she really produces that whole show. She runs a whole studio, and it's kind of amazing to think that that she was able to do this, that she is able to do this. She has a different looks. Obviously, in the I Love Lucy show, when she did that, she kind of was playing a housewife, so she had more of the 50s type of makeup look with a darker lip and the lashes. But as it came into the 60s and she started doing other TV shows, her look is now very modern. So she's got the peach lip and she's got the shadows, you know, very.
I have to say, I much prefer Lucille Ball in the Lucy show than I did to I Love Lucy. She's still playing a ditz, but it's very sort of conscious, like I'm actually brilliant, and this is my vaudeville show. I'm really sorry to hear that Vivian Vance will not be in the next season, though. I was sad to hear about that. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I had to.
Yes, and they're great friends, by the way, too. So I don't think there's any love lost because they're still great friends. They have been for a very long time. And they're, you know, she comes over all the time and stays at their house. And the kids are all, you know, very fond of her. So she's kind of like their aunt. So they, but yeah, the Lucy show is definitely more of her own creation instead of trying to play more of a comedic role as a, you know, kind of sidekick to the husband. So it's kind of like a more of an ensemble cast, but she's always playing that same kind of ditzy character, or, you know, kind of mischievous character. But her look now is definitely more kind of loose and modern. So she's definitely wearing the peach shades. So we made a lipstick of her favorite shade that's called What a Peach, and it's a very pretty peach shade. And also her lashes, because she's known for lashes. Her she doesn't she had to shave her eyebrows when she was very young because she was originally a six field girl. In the movies, so she, at that point, you know, all the actresses kind of shaved their eyebrows, and then they would paint in the brow depending on what the character called for. So they could paint the brow either very long and kind of angling down to do like a sad or more you know, somber characters, and then they could paint them more up to be happier characters. So the brows were kind of painted depending on what the character was supposed to be feeling. So she had to paint them, but they never grew back. So she had to paint them all her life, actually. And it's really funny that it's one of the things she had to do. Like every morning she would put on the brows before her husband got up, so he would never see her without the brows. Which is a very much of a housewife thing to do, I guess. And but yeah, she does wear these long lashes because she's very fair, and her lashes are very blonde, so you can't really see them very well. So she always wore very large lashes. So we made her lashes as well that match her favorite styles.
And I just like to point out, the Journey Studio makeup department is some of the best. I don't know if you can tell, but these are completely artificial, as is this 12 o'clock shadow that I've got here. The only thing that's real is my nose. All right, let's have Lorelei's last outfit. Come on out. If this doesn't say summer, I don't know what does. Gwyn, take it away.
So this one, you should show the back. This is the one that has the scoop back, doesn't it? Yeah, so the back is really the part that tells us that this is the correct period. We see that it ties at the back. This this sort of spaghetti strap has just become popular in large part because of the monokini from Rudy Gernreich. His influence with that, it was very shocking to see that last summer, you know, and so we've started to see spaghetti straps become a major part of young fashion. And also, if you notice, the pattern on that dress is again an abstract floral pattern. It's not, it doesn't try to be realistic. This is again that abstraction that really tells us that it's the period. At the same time, it harkens back to some silhouettes with the 1950s, and we can see a little bit. I think that this is going to become a more popular style as the decade moves on into the 70s.
Carla, what do you think of this lovely outfit?
I love the color. It's quite darling. All of your looks are darling. You have such a good eye for fashion, Lorelai. And just the print. The print is what really makes it for me. It's just a very nice, floral, happy, poppy print.
And I find it interesting. So this kind of thing, they weren't wearing flower dresses in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s.
Well, the 30s, they would have like floral prints from, say, feed sack dresses or just regular woven cottons. And just usually make it or get it mass produced, depending on where you got it from. And
Actually, that's a really interesting question. Do you, when you are coming up with your vintage fashions, how often do you source flour sacks for dresses? Because obviously that was a real phenomenon in the 30s when people were so poor that they got some of their dressing material from the fabrics that they were printing deliberately on these sacks of food to do double duty. How often do you make clothes out of that kind of thing, or is that even possible to source anymore?
it's surprisingly still possible to source, not from the actual manufacturers, but from people who washed it carefully, unpicked it, and folded it up and stuck it in an attic somewhere. I was actually gifted some last year as a birthday present from a dear friend, and I made a nice little summer blouse.
That's amazing. I would love to see that sometime. And Gabriela, what do you think of this dress? And then we have a question just for you.
It's very, very pretty. It's interesting to see the coloring, of course, and also the type of pattern. Like the florals in the now are definitely more geometric and, like Gwen said, a bit more abstract, because you have a lot more abstract type of pattern going on now. If you look at flower patterns from like the 30s and the 20s, they're more realistic flower patterns. You know, you can see like drawings of the flowers, or you know, you can tell what the flower is exactly, instead of being more kind of an experimental type of modern melange of flowers. So I think that's the difference. But it's very pretty. The straps too are very pretty for a younger girl. You would have worn this with a hat, probably. Would be a very nice thing to wear, with a straw hat to go out, and maybe some bangles. It would make a really nice summer outfit.
Now, speaking real quick about abstract, is it op art that is having this influence on leading more towards the abstraction of these patterns
Yes.
become dresses?
Yes, and also Andy Warhol as well, and his popularity of like doing prints where you repeat things over and over again, and very bold color prints. You know, that kind of influence you see in patterns, you see in colors of makeup, and also in purses and dresses and every kind of pattern, even curtains and things for the home.
And if you missed it, we had a show, I believe it was the April 11th show, but I could be wrong. But it's definitely back then, and you can see all of our previous shows we've just broadcasted out to you. We did a show specifically devoted to art and architecture, and we talk about op art and show some of the amazing pictures that have come out, and also the pop art that Gabriela was just talking about. So if you get a chance, that would be an excellent compliment. After you've seen this show, check your local listings for a rerun playing near you. All right, thanks very much, Lorelei. That's the last outfit of hers, and but we'll have one more special outfit for you. This question is for Gabriela, although it could be for everyone who's a fan of Bésame products. Jimeni asks, what is your favorite? I know it's going to be hard for you to choose. Gabriela, what is your favorite line that Bésame products produces?
I think this new line, I mean, we do a lot of work with Disney, which is very much fun because I get to work with them directly, and I get to go to their archives and work on like really early animation, and that's a lot of fun to do. But this series that I started with Lucy is called the Iconic Women series, and we'll continue to do Iconic Women, and this is becoming really one of my favorite projects to work on because we get to work with so many wonderful women, and we get to tell people about them and about what they accomplished, and it's very, very rewarding, and it's a lot of fun to kind of explore each individual style of all these ladies.
Now, Gwyn, when you are putting together outfits, I don't know how much cosmetics is your bailiwick, but do your production use Bésame Cosmetics?
Yes, actually they do. It's really, I was so thrilled to finally get to meet you in person. Well, as much in person as we can, right? Because I've been on a couple of productions that have used Bésame, and it was, I mean, the quality is just tops. And I think actually the first time I saw you, one of my close colleagues is makeup and hair as well. We met when we were both working in theater, and then she moved into film also around the same time I did, but we work in different productions now. And we went to a 1940s day, I guess, at the Egyptian Theater, maybe, on Hollywood Boulevard. Yes. And I think you were there.
Yes.
I went and saw your stuff and watched you talk, and it was so eye-opening. It was wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I remember doing those. Those are really fun. It's too bad we haven't been able to do those because that theater is a beautiful theater. It's, the architecture in there is amazing. If you've never been in there, you should go just to take a look. But it was a lot of fun, and I have a ton of fun working with all the people in Hollywood. They're very, very hardworking, and it's very, very difficult to do their jobs. So I really I take my hat off to them because they put in some serious hours to make all of that look the way it does, you know.
Now, by the way, we are coming up on the hour, but we just still have stuff to talk about. So if no one minds, I'd like to go on for another 15 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right, because Carla, I wanted to ask you, what is your, I understand you use Bésame products. What is your favorite line? And what would you like to see if there's any that they are not producing?
Goodness, I love their lipsticks. I'm currently wearing one right now, and this is just another one that I have lying around. I would like to see like more just a more range of skin tone products in the pressed powders and the loose powders, maybe, if at all possible. But I understand how difficult things are and stuff like that to process, but you know, be nice.
Oh, we do. Yeah, we do have a lot. It's just is a lot of people don't know that we have them. Because we expanded the range of powders, so we do have a lot of colors in the darker range, but I think a lot of people aren't aware of it. So I think I need to put out some more information so that people know we have them.
Okay.
Because we have had them for a while. But all our colors, though, as far as like our colors that go on every part of your face, they work on every complexion because I make them in a way that I know that it won't look ashy if you're darker, and it will still look like the color it's supposed to look like. So we work very hard to make those work on pretty much everybody.
Now, I also wanted to point out something very, very important. Of the 4 people here, one of us is celebrating a birthday. Would that person raise their hand? So we may have a little bit of a time lag because of the speed of light, but I'd like all of us here and the people in the audience. We can't actually hear you, but maybe the Soviets can if they've tapped your phone. So let's all go following me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Carla. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, guys.
Yay! Congratulations.
All right, let's take another question, and then we have another outfit, and then perhaps from there we can adjourn to Portal 55. So what is the next question?
Carrie asks, how is the space race influencing fashion?
So how is the space race influencing fashion? I know that Gwyn actually wrote an article about this a couple of years ago. So I'm going to start with you again.
I've written about it pretty extensively. So the short answer is that it's a long answer. But I think that some of the things that we can definitely bullet point is that, first off, because of our role in World War II and nuclear technology, we regard technology right now as both a savior and a killer. And when it's in our hands, we see utopia. And when it's in the hands of other people, we see it as Armageddon right now. And so as a result, we have not only this incredible hope for the future, but we also have this very intense, deep-rooted paranoia. Exactly. Deep-rooted paranoia about the future as well, really depending on who has power and if we can maintain power, and is it our role to push everybody forward. So the space race really represents a lot in terms of fashion. We're able to see a lot of influence. First off, we start to regulate space. We're starting to see that a lot now. So we've regulated space in terms of, I saw earlier there was a question of why aren't we wearing hats so much anymore? Part of it is that hats are now becoming more like helmets. Glasses are becoming more like visors. And so they're really starting to emulate the idea of protective wear rather than a soft or fashion statement. It's really becoming very regulatory. We try and make it so that a lot of our high-class space fashion is the boot and the pants are all one piece, or you're wearing one-piece suits that are very boxy and geometric, that we lose pattern and we lose softness in a lot of these things. And even in some cases we have, you know, people like Paco Rabanne is starting to make these dresses that basically look like satellite paneling that are made to sort of psychologically reflect everything away from us. It's meant to protect the rays of the rest of the world, you know, the rays of propaganda and politics and war and all this stuff. That's what it represents. And he's even said that his fashion, he wants it to feel like the sound a gun makes when you cock the gun. So there's a lot of this sense of frivolous fun and this kind of return to childhood, childlike wonder in what we're seeing, but there's also this very intense militaristic tension underneath it. And the space race was that way too. It held a lot of hope for us to move forward, for us to move up. And it also at the same time was a race. It was a militaristic race, or it is a militaristic race still. So just because we've gotten, you know, a couple of people up into orbit at this point, we really have we have a lot of this left to go, and it's going to get more and more intense as we go. So we'll see a huge shift. We'll see basically, I think we'll see everything kind of split. We'll see this sort of this radical return to nature in response to how uniform we are right now. So you can expect that to be coming very soon, I think, especially with things like the Beatles, right? We just had the Beatles, Ed Sullivan was last year. And so with the Ed Sullivan Show and him, we're starting to see men grow their hair out longer. They don't want to wear hats because boys don't wear hats. Men that work in offices wear hats. You know, like that sort of mentality is starting to take us away from that. So all of that is.
Kennedy started all that too. He was the first hatless president.
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely.
I, for one, am grateful that I can show off my beautiful curly locks. I stopped cutting them in protest of the Vietnam War. And I hope I can get a haircut next year, but I'm not counting on it.
If somebody yells at you, tell them it's the Beatles' fault.
It's the Beatles' fault, all those mop tops. Although, you know, I'm honestly partial to the Kinks, if you've heard of them.
Of course, yeah.
Wow, we're really hip for our middle age. You're not supposed to trust anyone over 30. Carla, this would have been a great segue for me to talk about Katherine Johnson, and now we've already passed it up. Is anything in your repertoire space age?
I like a lot of silver in my garments sometimes, depending on the mood. If it's if I'm emulating something, say from a comic book, I will go with that sort of futuristic, spacey look to it, and just sort of work from there.
What was your favorite comic book character to emulate? Obviously, there's so many to choose from in 1965.
Goodness. Well, I once did a female version of Robin from Batman and Robin, but I fortunately no longer have any photos of it. They kind of got ruined, but it was quite a fun costume to wear, and I looked adorable.
I'm sure you did. I understand Batgirl is a new character who's just come on the scene, and so maybe you can dress up as her at some point. Gabriela, you have any thoughts on the space race and clothing?
Sure. I mean, as far as you know, like Gwen was saying, I see two different camps as far as what people are wearing in the makeup arena as well. I mean, you have the metallics, which are really strong because they're coming from an influence of space. So you have a lot of metallic. Metallic is everywhere pretty much. You have shadows that are metallic, eyeliners that are metallic, and metallics in lipsticks. So white lipsticks that have silver flecks in them, and then lipsticks that are pearl. So a lot of pearly lipsticks. So lipsticks that have a silvery sheen to them is also very common. So all of this kind of space type of materials have kind of trickled down into makeup as well. Also hair, because hair, it's either you have kind of the more free, earthy people that just let their hair grow and it's kind of natural the way it is, or the very geometric cuts like you see now of hair that is like Vidal Sassoon is cutting with just very straight cuts, very angular cuts, and that kind of goes together with that whole space outfits and short skirts that are silver, or short outfits that are in metallics, and the makeup kind of goes with it. A lot of white and black, so primary colors as well are used a lot to draw shapes in that along the eye area. So very contrasty type makeup, and not feminine and pretty like we used to see in the 50s, where girls were just like very just rosy cheeks and rosy lips, but you know, very stark looks like white lips and dark eyes and things of that nature that are more shocking, I guess, to the eye because of the contrast. Very angular and kind of a different type of take on it, but very fashion forward.
Fantastic. And by the way, while we may not get to all of your questions on the air, everyone is, of course, welcome and encouraged to engage with the audience with our special teletype arrangement that we've set up via Syncom. I had one more outfit I wanted to show off, and it's actually mine. So I'm going to get up on the pedestal, or I probably don't need to because I'm a little taller, and I'm going to show off my new jacket and tie. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Please, if you have anything negative to say, definitely tell me, because I'm a glutton for punishment.
It's nice.
Ooh, okay. So that very subtle plaid that you have, if I'm not sure if everyone can see it, but I can. That is really starting to show off that color for men is coming back, and it has been a long time since men have really gotten to express themselves through color in a big way. And so I think that with what we'll see in the future is a real push, a real push for men to adopt color again, and to adopt pattern. You can see that wonderful tie, amazing tie. Yeah, that's such a good tie. So that tie with the plaid that you have, and which is a sports coat, and then your slacks, of course, being a solid, is just fantastic. Exciting things ahead. Perfect. Thank you.
You're muted.
Yep, couldn't hear you.
Hey, you're lucky I'm wearing pants today. I won't tell you which shows I haven't worn pants, but you should go through the past Journey shows and see if you can guess which ones they were. Here's a hint. It's all of them but this one. By the way, you should see on your television screen right now, I am showing you how to watch the next Journey show, which will be in exactly 2 weeks.
I have a problem with that. So if they're trying to register for it, we may need to.
What's wrong with that?
Like, it says it's expired.
Oh dear. Well, apparently the way just so you know, you can't do it right now, but you will all have the opportunity, especially when you get the listing for this show's rerun. In 2 weeks, our show's special guest is going to be Hugo finalist Tom Purdom. We are very honored to have him on our show. He, of course, is the author of this fantastic book from last year, I Want the Stars, which Journey Press is reprinting this month. So you'll get a chance to talk to this amazing author who's been in the business for a few years, since the early 60s, which means he's been in business for 3 years, or depending on where you come from, maybe as much as 60. Lorelei will also be doing a musical performance, so it's definitely a show you don't want to miss. We'll be talking about science fiction. We'll probably have some of our regulars like Cora to talk about science fiction as well, and we'll give you some great summer recommendations. So that's going to be the show for July 25th, and again, we will make sure you know how to watch it. Oh my goodness, I've got licorice in my hand again. All right, we've got 2 minutes, so we're going to ask one more question. We'll go around, and then I think we're done for today. So what is the very last question of today? I saw a great question. It was, how has the civil rights movement affected fashion, or has it? And Carla, of course, I'm going to go to you for that question.
I believe that it has. A lot of people are dressing a bit more conservatively to show that, yes, we are deserving of equal rights, getting the right to vote properly finalized and situated, and everything. But there are a few that are sort of going against the establishment and are wearing all shades of black. Don't know how that's going to turn out anytime soon, but it's kind of interesting to see some of the little bits of the fringes starting to sort something out.
Well, I imagine as you get groups like the Deacons down in Louisiana, they're going to be in more paramilitary, maybe influenced by the French Resistance sort of styles. Mm-hmm. Maybe even berets and such.
Perhaps.
Anyone else have anything to add on that?
I think that the civil rights movement has had an influence for a lot longer than just now. So for example, after World War I, we were really interested in anti-things. So anti-fashion, trying to find new equations for beauty, and anti-music, which gave birth to jazz. Anti-art, which was Dadaism and Surrealism and things like that. Well, with jazz, especially jazz and swing dance, anti-music and anti-dance, really the Black American experience and identity, that's the Harlem Renaissance, was where they were, people were really starting to describe their own identity and American experience rather than trying to conform to the white experience, I think. And so I think that has in part led us to stuff like being able to wear jeans in everyday situations, not just in work situations, and needing to wear things like belts instead of suspenders. A lot of people started wearing belts instead of suspenders, because of things like this, and wearing white socks with dark color shoes. These kinds of things arose, I think, because of the rising Black identity in America as well.
Gabriela, anything to add on that?
I think the whole kind of anti-establishment movement is created different styles for people. Instead of having one general style that most people try to emulate, there's just a lot of different styles going on. Like if you before this, I mean, a lot of the styles that are geometric, you have to have straight hair to wear these styles. You can't have curly hair or kinky hair to be able to wear those. You have to do a lot in order to do that style and actually have it work. But at the same time, there are people who are wearing their hair curly now, and curly hair is perfectly acceptable as a way to wear it, or in longer hair with waves is also a way that people are styling their hair. So it's not as one style type of thing, where if you didn't have the straight hair and you didn't style it a certain way, kind of like a bouffant hairdo or a beehive hairdo, which would take a lot of work if your hair wasn't straight. And even if your hair is straight, it takes a lot of work to do those styles. I think we're moving into looser interpretations of different fashions, where it's not so time consuming to do the look, or you could do different types of look instead of just one look that happens to be very hard to do if you're going against the grain of your natural hair. So going into a little bit more of a natural thing is actually helping, I think, and that has to do with all the different thoughts that we have now, as far as not necessarily following, the trend.
And to just add on that, and then we'll wrap it up. I don't know if you got to see the amazing show East Side, West Side, which aired in the 1963-64 season, starring George C. Scott. But Cicely Tyson was a co-star, and she was, I believe, the first Black woman to have a major role on a television show. And not only was she a cool character, but she wore her hair naturally, which was very unusual for the time. So if they ever show it in reruns, if you get a chance to watch East Side, West Side, it's definitely an amazing show to watch. That's going to wrap up our show for today. We are already being asked to do this again. So hopefully at some point we're going to be available again. We should at least do this once a year, and we'll try to get more fashions to show off. But in the meantime, I am absolutely just humbled to have such a prestigious panel with me today. It's been a lot of fun. You've really set the bar high. I think you've entertained everybody. You've made this black licorice almost palatable. And for all of you who want to join me after, we're going right over to Portal 55. I don't know if any of our guests are going to be there, but I am certainly going to be there, and we can chat and wind down. So thank you very much for joining us on The Journey Show. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.